Let's pick up on this discussion now. Parliament's Ethics Committee has found that Economic Freedom Fighters Deputy President Floyd Shivambu guilty of violating the Code of Ethical Conduct by not declaring payments he received from the defunct VBS Mutual Bank. Shibambu will have 9 days of his salary docked as a result. And joining me for this discussion now is the chairperson of the Joint Committee on Ethics and Members' Interests, Bekizwe Nkosi, and alongside him is political analyst Dr Levy Ndou, attached to the University of the Tshwane University of Technology, I should say. To both of you, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Chairperson, can I quickly start with you and ask, the guilty find on Mr. Shibambu, it involves a total amount of 180,000 rand. Do you believe that that amount is an accurate reflection of the amounts he received?
Good morning.
It is Toli.
It is Toli. Good morning, Toli, and
thank you, sir.
Your viewers. Yes, what appeared before us and what we found were those amounts which were not declared by the member in his disclosures for 2017. We didn't find any other amount undeclared for the following reasons. When we did our investigations and our research on this issue, we had to go via the FIC to allow them to provide us with financial intelligence, which would have allowed us to check if there is any other amount. But the FIC indicated that Parliament is not a reporting structure in terms of Section 40, and therefore they are not in a position to share their intelligence, finance intelligence with us.
Yeah.
Upon legal advice, we then stopped that. At the time, the information we had before us was that he had not declared 180,000 rands. Secondly, all other matters related to this issue are outside of our purview as the Ethics Committee and are being investigated, I believe, by other law enforcement agencies like the SIU and whatever.
Okay, all right. And just quickly on the back of that, do you believe that your investigations went far enough? And I ask you that because part of your statement says that the investigation was, quote unquote, inconclusive.
We went as far as our code of conduct allows us. Remember that with us, the concentration is basically on whether monies received by the member were declared. So when we checked in terms of the complaint, there was an allegation that there were millions that were deposited. However, because we didn't have access to and were not allowed to access his other or bank accounts, we couldn't really do something that was outside of our code. So we stopped at the point where we checked whether this 180,000 that reflects from Scamera and Azania was declared. That's our remit, and we stopped there. Had there been any other issue, we would have followed it, but we don't have those powers in terms of the FIC Act.
All right, Dr. Ndou, let's bring you into the conversation. A parliamentary verdict which says that an EFF leader has benefited from the looting of the VBS Bank, whose victims were poor elderly residents of Limpopo. How damaging is that image for the party?
Good morning, Toli. Good morning, Honorable Nkosi and the viewers at home. Well, I think that would be quite damaging. Every political party would love to ensure that they keep their integrity intact, and at the same time, they need leaders who have to lead by example. Every political party would not love to have their leaders who are tainted, who would actually bring a negativity onto the party. So, of course, this should be a matter of serious concern by the EFF, and one would expect that the EFF has to come out very strong on wrongdoing amongst its members. But whether we like it or not, it is within the rights of the EFF or within their own space to decide on what appropriate action they have to take. Parliament has actually done its part, and what most people would be expecting would be to see what then would be the step that the EFF would have to take.
Mr. Nkosi, let's come back to you. On Mr. Malema, I believe that it was exactly the same matter of the VBS that you investigated, and you could not make a finding. Tell us why.
We basically couldn't make a finding on Mr. Malema because the payments and the movements of money between Skamega accounts didn't involve Mr. Malema, one. Two, the Mahuma investment account didn't indicate that there were monies that were paid into his account. So on that basis, as a committee, we couldn't find that there was breach or no breach because information simply indicated that no money flowed to his personal bank account.
Dr. Ndou, back to you. Oh, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just saying, similar to that, the FIC indicated that we are not a reporting structure, and therefore they will not share finance intelligence information with us.
Yeah. And
our legal opinion confirmed it.
Dr. Ndou, back to you then. You have heard I don't know if I should characterize them as a problem that Parliament has had in trying to investigate this matter, because there is the FIC, which basically tracks the financial routes that monies would have taken. And so that structure says we are not a reporting structure to Parliament. Therefore, we cannot give you information. But here's a question. The investigative capacity of Parliament, and match that with the weight of the sanction. Mr. Shibambu will have 9 days of his salary that he will have to forfeit. Does that serve as a deterrent?
Well, I think it actually depends on who is responsible for making these rules. And you would agree with me that these rules are actually made by the same members of Parliament who would therefore decide on the kind of punishment that they're supposed to be getting. These are our own lawmakers in South Africa, and we expect them to raise the bar in terms of matters of accountability, in terms of transparency, and also on matters relating to ethical conduct. And what you get is that in terms of the sanctions, they'll only talk about the loss of salary, a reprimand, counseling, and apology. That is what this committee can bring to South Africans. They are actually saying that we cannot go beyond anything else, but what we can do is that you only have to lose a salary if there has been a lot of huge amounts of money that has been deposited into your own account. Another area, in my view, that will be of great concern is that even though Parliament cannot be able to go beyond its framework, do we have a strong investigative capacity in South Africa to deal with matters of this nature? And I would also want to take it back to Parliament that in terms of structures, in terms of systems and capacity in South Africa, it sounds like it is quite easy for a person to get a lot of wealth and nothing happens because we have no law enforcement agencies in South Africa. We've got a very weak NPA and very weak police. So this is what we have in South Africa, and unfortunately, that is what we have to live with.
Mr. Nkosi, that's a serious indictment. Would you like to respond to that? You are a lawmaker, something needs to change?
Yeah, firstly, I will speak in terms of our code. In terms of our code, as the professor has indicated, we are limited to those sanctions. We do recognize that they may not be adequate. And in that regard, we have undertaken to amend the Code of Ethics. If we amend it, it won't be applicable to this term of office. It will be applicable once adopted by the 6th Parliament.
When was that recommendation?
Sorry?
When was that recommendation to amend the Code of Ethics?
We are in the process of amending it as I speak to you. The committee has as its task in the coming 4 months to amend in fact, to overhaul the entire Code of Ethics applicable to members.
All right.
But currently, the one that applies to us is the one that provides for these sanctions. For us, they are adequate. Remember that we could go further. However, considering all facts before us, we first tabled a very severe sanction, but when we discussed and deliberated and realized that there are certain gaps and we couldn't go beyond what we have, we then decided on 9 days and we closed it at that. As to Parliament and its responsibilities on oversight on other institutions of government, I can assure South Africans that both the NPA and law enforcement agencies like the Hawks and the SIU and the Independent Directorate are working very hard to unearth corruption and to prosecute and investigate. Okay. And we as Parliament, we believe we should strengthen them, and we're strengthening them. I don't think that it is correct to say there are no law enforcement agencies. I don't speak for them, but publicly we can see that quite a number of cases involving corruption by everybody across, whether in private or public, are in court.
Okay. Final question to you, Mr. Nkosi. On Police Minister Bekizwe, you have recommended as a committee that he apologize. I'd like to know from you where that apology should be made, because he shouted and wagged a finger at a member of the public in a platform of a community meeting. The question to you is, does the sanction fit the crime in terms of respect, public confidence, including trust that society places on elected members of Parliament?
In the first place, I think the committee did find breach. We don't find people guilty because it's not a crime. We found that he breached the Code of Ethics in that his conduct did not evince confidence in the institution he represents. So when he spoke, when he acted in that meeting, he was representing not himself, but the Parliament of the people of South Africa. That Parliament is elected by the people of the country. Therefore, our sanction is that he should apologize to Mr. Ian Cameron in Parliament, which represents all South Africans. And we think that that is an adequate body or tribunal where he should offer the apology. If we were to ask him to offer the apology anywhere else, it would have no significance. Remember that this goes on record and is captured in Hansard and reflects that the highest decision-making body in terms of legislature noted this and required the minister to apologize. So for us, it is adequate.
Okay, so we'll have to wait and see when that apology is going to come. Dr. Ndou, finally and very briefly if you can, trust is earned, at least that's what I'm taught, if a government minister conducts himself in that manner in public. Does he deserve to be put on the pedestal?
Well, I think there should be standard ways and means in terms of behavior that are acceptable and unacceptable. And ministers and the cabinet or members of parliament are human beings, but I think at the best they should try to monitor their temper and actually behave in a manner that is permanently acceptable. And I think it is time that Minister Kyle go and do an apology so that other ministers would also learn their lessons.
Thank you very much to both of you gentlemen. Dr Levy Ndou, attached to the TUT, thanks indeed for your insights, and indeed Mr Bekizwe Nkosi, the chairperson of the Parliament's Committee on Ethics and members' interests. Thank you very much for giving us your time.